Hello, I'm Tim Wilde, and I'm going to give you my wild thoughts on Spirited. Oh, everyone's like, Tim, you gotta watch this movie. It's a wonderful musical, and it's got Will Ferrell, it's got Ryan Reynolds. You're gonna love it. It's gonna be so awesome. And I was like, I kind of don't really have interest in watching it. And then I saw the trailers. I was like, yeah, I really don't have any interest in watching it. It looks like it's just Will Ferrell being Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds. I like both of them, but what does that have to do with a Christmas spirited movie? And then I watched the movie. I watched it at 4 o'clock this morning because I was up and I was awake. I was doing editing and I had time to watch something. And I had my full attention. I was going to sit and devote myself to the screen. And I wasted that block on this. 2 hours and 7 minutes of Spirited. The reason I say 7 minutes, because even though it had like a long series of credits, they played 2 musical numbers and a end credit sequence during the credits. So it was like the movie is forever long, but that's not the point. I didn't like it. Sorry. My buddy Lance threw me in his car the other day, and he was like, Tim, we're going to listen to the Spirited songs. I'm like, okay. I haven't seen the movie yet. I don't really want to hear the music first. He's like, no, it's going to ruin anything for you. And he's right. It didn't, because nothing could make this movie, like, really good. He played the songs. He played the first, like, 3 songs. I don't know which ones they were. And all of them sounded the same. I said in the car, Lance, all of these songs sound exactly the same. They sound like just, like, bland, normal, regular, like chippery kind of music. They all sounded like the opening number of the South Park movie, Bigger, Louder, and Uncut. The opening number when there's walk around South Park introducing the characters. All of them sound just like that. Nothing interesting. Nothing. No variation. No different genres or anything. It was all just the same song, just differently sung. I did not care for it. It was boring. It was obvious. Okay, I'm not gonna say obvious. Because I'll say, I guess I'll have a spoiler at the end, but like the only redeeming thing about it was the ending. It's like slowly it subverted expectations, and then at the very end it really subverted expectations, and at the end of that it subverted it again. I don't know how to say it without ruining it. If anyone watches this, you probably watched the movie. If you are watching this and you didn't see the movie, obviously you didn't care enough to go see the movie. And if Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell didn't draw your attention, but I did somehow, then you're just watching this out of boredom. So, whatever. I'm just going to say... Okay, I'll spoil it right now. Ryan Reynolds getting hit by the bus... getting hit by the bus and getting flung into the car and dying. That moment where he realizes what happens and Will Ferrell comes up and then he turns and sees his sister, I was like, holy cow. This went completely a different direction than I was expecting it to. I'm sure other really smug people would be like, oh, I saw that coming miles away. Whatever. I was like, wow, this has a real, like, City of Angels with, what's her name? Meg Ryan and Nicolas Cage. That type of an ending. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. It's not where I thought it was going to go. I didn't like it. I was like kind of sad. Not that I cared about these characters at all from the movie, but that ending, I was like, oh. Well, that kind of sucks because they had their little bro moment, their fist bump thing. And then I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then he becomes the new president. I was like, oh, okay, I see what they did, why they did it. That's fine. He's going to become the new president, and then Will Ferrell's going to continue his life. Kind of like how in City of Angels, the girl, spoilers for that too if you didn't see it back in the 90s, the girl, Meg Ryan, dies after they finally connect. He goes through all this effort to become mortal. And then they have their night together. Then he dies, or she dies, and he lives his life, and she's now on the other side. And he's just learning to appreciate life and doing the things he couldn't appreciate as an angel. The difference is they couldn't interact. There still was that strike of tragedy in that movie. This one, oh, no. They're like best friends. It's like the end of Shaun of the Dead, where the buddy turns into a zombie, but he's just chained up in the shed. Even though that's like a total comedy. And then he's just there hanging out with his buddy playing video games while he's a zombie. This is like, oh, we're just going to hang out. I'm going to play around with your kids and all this stuff. They didn't really explain the whole thing with why Will Ferrell's character was able to reveal him or be seen by the black girl, whatever her name was. I was like, why did you set that all up and not make that like a consequence at the end? And why does it just free that, Ryan Reynolds can just know the girl and Will Ferrell's kids and all these people and just do whatever he wants? And it's like, okay, not Will, I'm sorry, Ryan Reynolds at the end of the movie, he just is running around as a ghost, but it really doesn't matter. So it's like there was no consequences to the sacrifice with a bus other than it triggered the people who walk out all creepily. It would have been better if they wanted to really subvert expectations with that setup. Let him be dead and let Will Ferrell just live his life and not be able to see Ryan Reynolds anymore. Let it be tragic. That's the whole point. It's not the whole point. If that's the point they were trying to do. Anyway, let's see. I have my few categories. I'll just spit out a few things real quick. The story and the script. I say this. I love Ryan Reynolds and I love Will Ferrell. I love them in their movies, mostly. But here's the thing. I do not think... well, how do I say this? Because this is a total, like, Will Ferrell project, you can tell. And I think it's his company that made it. Here's the thing. I think if you took this concept, when it had the reveal halfway through where he was Ebenezer Scrooge and it was all based off of him before they go into that awful song about Happy Thursday or Happy Afternoon, whatever, good afternoon. That twist, and then playing off of that with the modern character kind of back or pushing back against all the philosophies that are trying to be projected on him from Ebenezer Scrooge, we'll just call him that now, is very interesting because the reversals of those angles and perspectives, and the thought of a Grinch type character trying to convince another Grinch type character about the Christmas spirit and how not to regret the past and all that stuff. Him taking him on this journey, meaning Ebenezer Scrooge taking whatever his name is, Ryan Reynolds' character, on this journey, was an interesting factor. And other people, again, I saw that coming when I was like, shut up, you did not. Anyway, that's interesting. That was actually very interesting, and that there was like pushback and there was like conflict between the characters. Not like drama between them, but I mean there was like opposing ideas, and there was he was like kind of getting Will Ferrell's character to kind of bend a little bit and kind of be triggered by his own memories, his own dilemma. Would he have maintained that good spirit his whole life if it was more than a few weeks? You know, I think if you took this concept and you put it in the hands of someone that was writing a little more serious of a story, I don't know who, but someone that could take this a little more serious and not just complete satire Disney garbage. Not that it's Disney, it's Apple, but whatever. This could have actually been a very intriguing movie, a very different movie. It would be a much more emotional movie, but that twist with that revelation of the character being Ebenezer Scrooge and the interactions between the two characters, without it being Ryan Reynolds and his quirks and Will Ferrell and his quirks, have it to actual characters, not these cartoon characters, and let them actually play out a well-written drama on that story. Would, can you really redeem yourself in one night? Would Ebenezer Scrooge have done it? His now having the role, his motivation now to help other people be inspired is really interesting, because of what he's been through, the whole non-redeemable aspect of Ryan Reynolds' character and why that is such a big deal for Ebenezer Scrooge. All that stuff, intriguing. Very intriguing. In this movie, doesn't mean anything. It's just character bio to push it along. The story in this movie was just like kind of like this dump exposition and dump exposition, then dump exposition, but not creatively, not interestingly. And the story itself was not... That little factor I just described is interesting, but all the other stuff, not very good. Not very captivating or imaginative to me. The characters were boring. I'm sorry. I don't see any chemistry between Will Ferrell and the black girl. Ryan Reynolds and his sister, even though those were very short scenes, the hug at the end, that was emotional. I kind of cared about that for just a moment, but just a moment. I think that's it. Jacob, how does Jake or Marley fit into that? He's Marley, but okay. In the story, Ebenezer Scrooge's partner was Marley. Was there a different Marley that haunted? Was this ghost enterprise going before Ebenezer Scrooge? I mean, it prompted the story by Charles Dickens, and it was apparently it was a true story. But how does Marley, if that's his role, is he's the guy who's in charge of the operation, that he's the one that haunted Scrooge? If Scrooge wasn't the first person. That part was, I was like, wait, what? Because Marley was a person in Scrooge's life. He wasn't just someone that haunted him, I don't know. I didn't really get into these characters. Special effects were cheap and silly. I mean, the special effects and flying around and stuff like that, it really felt like a TV series budget. but this was like a movie budget. Now, granted, it's a streaming service movie budget, but this movie is in the theaters right now, and thank goodness I did not waste my money or credits at my theater to go see it there. Yeah, it was cheesy. It was cheap. It was very cheap. This movie so desperately wanted to be like a Moulin Rouge or a Greatest Showman level of animation and cinematography and visuals and everything, and it wasn't. Sorry. I don't know. I'll get to music in a second and cinematography, but the special effects were this cheap. The snow falling didn't look real. Like the sets didn't look real. Like I don't know, if this was like they want to do like the Santa Claus where they showed this realistic operational side of the Ghost of Christmas whatever's, you know, just like showing the North Pole in the Santa Claus movies, and like, oh, look how fun it is that there's real people like going to work and doing their daily grind to make this fictional story happen, this fantasy that we all love as children. Only I was like, okay, but those were interesting with interesting characters, you know, the stuff about the hot cocoa and the train and the reindeer and Bernard and all that stuff from the Santa Claus movie and other movies similar. This is just like, all right, let's get them going. I didn't care about the Ghost of Christmas Past, like hooked up with Ryan Reynolds, like off screen. And I was like, all right, they're just trying to just kind of be silly just for nothing. That didn't add to anything. And I'll say this about the characters. How can you make Tracy Morgan not funny? That was the dumbest. He like did nothing. The only funny part with the Ghost of Christmas Future or Yet to Be had nothing to do with him. It was when Ryan Reynolds got out to the cemetery. He's like trying to move the story along because he didn't want to live through the scary part or the depressing parts. And he was winded. The ghost was winded. That was funny. That was the only thing that was funny. Had nothing to do with Tracy Morgan because he didn't have any dialogue. And he wasn't in the suit. So I'm just like, okay, that was hilarious, but like, now maybe hilarious is a strong word. It was funny. But I just didn't feel like Tracy Morgan's lines, not a single one of them was amusing. And I was like, how do you waste Tracy Morgan? He's hilarious. Anyway, special effects. Okay, the music, I'm just going to say, I already said they all sound the same, but they do. The only two decent songs. The first one, I was like, okay, finally we have a different sounding song. And it was the Marley song when Jacob was there appearing in the chains and everything, haunting Ryan Reynolds. But they had to stop to keep interfering. That's not the right word. Interrupting. That's the word. Kept interrupting it to give the stupid jokes by Ryan Reynolds. The lights turn on and he's just waiting to continue the song, and Ryan Reynolds does his stupid questions and just makes his little quips and comments. Great. And then it goes back to the music. I was like, okay, well, this is good. This is interesting. I like the character. I like the stuff with the chains and the lighting and his being thrown all around. I was like, this is cool. And then he does it a couple more times, and finally the ghost like says, "Forget it," and he ends the song. He just walks off. I'm like, they went through two like really long, boring, repetitive songs, and then they get to a good sounding song that was interesting, and then they cut it short because that wasn't the tone they were going for. I guess it wasn't funny and goofy enough, so they were just, I don't know. That song I thought was interesting, and then they cut it short because they had to move on with the Ryan Reynolds gags and get Will Ferrell's character back into the screen. And then the other one that I didn't mind was Unredeemable. Right before he takes his or he becomes mortal again towards the end of the movie. That was okay. I mean, it wasn't great, but it was okay. It's kind of like how I feel about Hamilton. It would have been better without Will Ferrell, just like I thought Hamilton would have been better if someone else had played Hamilton. But I'm not going to get onto all of that. Don't be offended, you Lin-Manuel Miranda fans. I don't know. I was underwhelmed. It was boring. It was seriously, it was very repetitive. They all sound like the South Park opening song. And then the other song that was kind of interesting was the one that I'm sure everyone thinks is the funniest song ever, the stupid Good Afternoon song, which that song even sounds like the Uncle Effer song from the South Park movie. This movie is just a live action version of the South Park musical. I don't know. Listen to Uncle Effer if you want to. It has the F word in it quite a bit. And then listen to that Happy Tuesday song, whatever that song's called. Happy morning or good afternoon. And you'll be like, oh yeah, it's kind of similar. And even its tone and it's just whatever. It's just whatever it is. It is what it is. Didn't like it. Music sucked. And cinematography. This is the first time I'm going to break down cinematography into two categories, because you had the cinematography, which is like the visuals and the lighting and the camera work, the angles and all that stuff, the movement of the camera, everything, all that's applied into the framing and everything into cinematography. And then you have just the lighting itself. Now, I wish I was an educated person that understood a lot about either of those things, but all I can do is look at it and I can see things that are good and things that are bad. And I'm going to say the things that were good, the lighting. Very impressive display with the lighting, and different scenes looked different. They felt different. They had different vibes, and all that was done and accomplished with lighting. Things that happened in the past, that dark and dour, bland, shadowy tone worked, and especially in the Charles Dickens era. And then you have the stuff in the workshop or whatever with the big studio kind of lighting, and then you have the dance numbers on the street were really well lit but more realistic. Things in apartments or things in bedrooms or whatever, like everywhere they went, it had a different lighting. Now that may sound obvious for any movie, but this did a lot of creative stuff with the lighting. Not just talking about the musical numbers, but that definitely did make things pop. But you have lighting, and then you have the actual camera work and interesting shots and framing and everything. And if you go back, and I have problems with Greatest Showman, I'm not saying that's like the definitive example, but if you look at cinematography along with music especially, that movie knocks it out of the park. I can't think of another movie that does it better with these kind of visuals and lighting as Greatest Showman. Go watch some of those songs and then watch some of these songs. These are very like Broadway dance number kind of songs with some, hot or tapping and the pop and lock stuff, whatever, with really cool lighting. Again, it's interesting. It's just standard stuff with camera work with good lighting. Greatest Showman has great lighting and great camera work. Complete difference. So I'm not even going to give this a big plus on that. What do I rate this movie? Story and script. I'm going to give it a 1, not a 1.5. I'll give it a 1.5. The story was interesting. I'm going to write these down. I don't normally do it. I wasn't going to rate it. 1.5. That means it's a little better than average. I think conceptually there's something here. I don't think the execution or the casting, which changes the whole thing, I know for many of you, is what makes it. Characters, I'm going to give it a 1. I didn't care about these characters. I don't think they were interesting. I kind of want to go lower, but I'm going to be nice. Special effects. I can't judge it because this is an Apple TV streaming movie or whatever. Maybe it's not. Yeah, this is Apple Plus or Apple TV Plus. So it's a 1. I don't know what their budget really should have been, but there's a lot of series that are like Disney and Netflix and HBO, which have like special effects that are good enough for a theatrical release movie. This one is a theatrical release movie that looks cheap, so I'm gonna give it a 1. Music and sound, it's 1. It's not good. I don't even want to give it that. Screw it. I was generous on the other one. It's a 0.5. It is not interesting. I'm sorry. You have these big numbers, and Will Ferrell is not a great singer. Now, I understand that's the charm of the character. He's not supposed to be a big singer, but like, that's what they're going for. These numbers, as much budget and effort that they put into these, that's why they sucked. Is because it's just like falls flat. Part of the reason it falls flat is not just Will Ferrell, but both of them. They're not singers, Go watch Sweeney Todd with Johnny Depp. He's not a professional singer. He's a good actor, but he pulls off those songs in a way that these two do not pull off these songs. And if it was just a couple of funny songs in a regular movie, that's fine. But this was a full-on musical with huge numbers. Doesn't work. So 0.5, you get docked for that. Cinematography and editing. I'm going to give it 1.5. I'll be nice on that. Because it tried. It wasn't atrocious. It wasn't offensive. So what does that get me? Script and story, 1.5. Characters, 1. Special effects, 1. Music, 0.5. I'm going to offend everyone. I don't care. Cinematography and editing, 1.5. Because there were some brilliant attempts. It wasn't quite at the level of Greatest Showman. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. There you go. That's my Wilde review of, what's it called? Spirited. With Ryan Reynolds and, I almost said Burt Reynolds, but it's Will Ferrell. I love them. I really do love them. And I thought there were some interesting things done in this, but fell flat. It was boring. It was obvious. I'm not gonna say obvious. It wasn't obvious because they did some things towards the end and the middle that I was like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Let's see what they do with it. They did nothing with it. Make it tragic. Make it have some consequences. Let at the end him live in this world, in the spirits being the new president, and let Will Ferrell live in the real world and let them just like remember and admire each other from afar. But he's going and sharing paperwork with him at the end of all this stuff. I was like, no. You can't have your cake and also eat your cake. You have to eat your cake or have the cake. In this one, they chose to eat the cake when they killed the character. Fine. You can't have that cake in the bromance anymore. It's gone. You ate it. So, there you go. Those are my wild thoughts. I'm sure there's more I could say, but I'm sure you're disinterested. But if you sat through that crap, you should have tolerance and endurance to get through this. So, whatever. Wild thoughts on Spirited with Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds. You can watch on TV Plus, Apple TV, and I'm immediately, after done doing this recording, going to cancel my subscription because I will never need to watch this movie again. Okay, thanks for watching. I don't remember if I need to let it buffer for a minute on this platform, so I'm going to give it just a second. Maybe just another second.